feminism was not possible without this individual paving the way forward. Today we'll be discussing the life of Marie Gouges, who is later known as Olympe de Gouges. She was born in Mountbatten of southern France on the 7th of May 1748. Born into a modest background, her father being a butcher and her mother being from a lower middle class background. Her birth actually met some scandal, as there was a question in the legitimacy of her parentage, as some believed her father was actually an aristocrat and writer named Jean. Olympe was actually said to have believed these rumours, and this is what paved her forward in her pledge for equality for all. Like most girls of the century, she received very little formal education. This is why it became such a huge surprise that she would later be a writer and a massive political influence in the French Revolution, pushing these ideals of females' rights. At the age of 17, she was married to a man named Louis Aubry, who she was said not to have loved very much. She had one surviving son with her husband named Pierre. However, her husband would soon die in 1766 in a flood. Olympe actually later described her marriage as the tomb of trust and love. Following in 1766, she was widowed and unfulfilled, so she moves to Paris. This is when she actually reinvents herself and has the new name Olympe de Gouges, a name she crafted herself, symbolic of her newfound independence. She soon became a part of vibrant cultural life in the heart of Paris. Although she was not an aristocrat, she did live a very luxurious bourgeoisie life, supported by her lover Jacques. Jacques was a wealthy man who supported Olympe, although she did refuse to marry him. She spent time in intellectual salons and discussed Enlightenment ideals with other people and intellectuals. Salons actually played a very significant role in the French Revolution, as they were a place where people could actually discuss intellectual ideals, and it really perpetuated the ideals of the Enlightenment, such as liberty, as well as the ideals that were perpetuated from the American War of Independence. It is actually said that these salons actually laid the foundations for the development of various political clubs that were involved in the French Revolution. In the 1770s and 1780s, Olympe began to write different plays, pamphlets, and novels. Her most famous play was written in 1784, named Zamor et Misra. This addressed slavery and colonial injustice. This was very controversial at the time, and the play actually remained banned for many years. This, however, increased Olympe de Gouges in the political landscape of France. Moving forward, the French Revolution begins in 1789, and Olympe de Gouges is working on a work for females' rights to be included. At this time, it is known that the Declaration of Rights of Man and Male Citizen is published. However, it does not include slaves and it does not include females. At this time, it's also the time where the notion of active versus passive citizens is introduced in France, and active citizens were deemed as eligible males who were 25 years and above and could pay a certain threshold in order to vote. However, this again was only enabling males to vote, and although it was a step forward in equality for all people to be involved in politics, it still excluded 50% of the population. In response to this declaration, Olympe de Gouges writes her own Declaration of the Rights of Women in 1791. She directly challenged male leaders such as Rousseau and Robespierre. The quotations in her declaration were very similar to the ones in the Declaration of Rights of Man, except they actually extended those rights to females as well, such as women are born free and equal in rights to men, women should have the right to vote, own property, serve in government, and be equal before the law, and women must also be held equally and accountable to the law. She did also have other political standings. She advocated for a constitutional monarchy, similar to the one in England, the abolition of slavery in different French colonies. She wanted rights for illegitimate children, freedom of press and speech, and public assistance for the poor and single mothers. She was very opposed to the Jacobins, and she became a fierce critic of Robespierre. Indeed, she actually viewed the Reign of Terror as tyranny. She was publishing posters and pamphlets attacking Robespierre, saying that the country should actually be voting for if they want to have a constitutional monarchy or to abolish the monarchy. However, Robespierre is not happy when he sees what Olympe is doing. She was arrested in August of 1793 for allegedly attacking the sovereignty of the people and her anti-Jacobin views. She defended herself in her trial without a lawyer, writing her own legal arguments. Despite this, she was found guilty and executed on the 3rd of November 1793 at age 45. Her final words were recorded as, "If a woman has the right to mount the scaffold, she must also have the right to mount the rostrum." Years after her death, she would have a major impact on modern feminism. However, after her death, she was largely ignored and ridiculed by 19th century historians who saw her as hysterical. France's revolutionary history at this period really glorified male leaders, and her radical feminism was not embraced at all, really. It was not until the 20th century in which feminist scholars in the 20th century rediscovered her writings, and her declaration of woman was recognized as one of the most modern feminist texts. And now she is celebrated as a pioneer in women's rights and a trailblazer in anti-slavery, as well as a martyr of freedom. She today is honoured in French schools, history books, and public discussions. In recent years, there actually have been petitions to move Olympe de Gouges' remains to the Parthenon in Paris, which is a French monument to national heroes. I think her life is extremely fascinating, and as one of the first pioneers in women's rights, I think it's really important to share her story.